What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Dolphins Daily, your daily dose of Dolphins content with your boy Chris Kane. Let's talk about the Dolphins. Well, this was a very anticlimactic day for the Dolphins. We had all this ideas of what could happen. There's rumors about Rasul Douglas being traded, Minka Fitzpatrick being traded, Bradley Chubb, of course, and Jalen Waddle, and then nada. Literally nada. Jalen Phillips was yesterday. We got that done, and we didn't know what else was going to happen. The big talking point was Jalen Waddle was on the market. Now again, the asking price was crazy. I saw everything I saw had at least a first, and it was a first plus. I saw some that had two first rounders, which, hey, I like Jalen Waddle, but what are we doing? And I think what ultimately happened is that the price was too much. They said the Broncos and other teams called. I think those teams didn't want to be named because they didn't want their current receivers to get upset. Called Miami and said, "Hey, will you come down from that one plus? We like the player a lot. We think he fits in the team. We're willing to pay the money. We don't want to give you three picks to get Jalen Waddle." And Miami said, "We're standing 10 toes down. You pay the cost, or we don't mind him staying." And that's what happened. I don't think Waddle should have ever been on the block in the first place. He has a couple years left on his deal. He's clearly our wide receiver one. Injuries have been a concern. I think people who like the Dolphins, most Waddle's pretty liked in the fan base, I think. But we've seen Waddle way too many times start a game and then hobble to the sideline, grabbing a shoulder, grabbing a wrist, grabbing a knee, and then he comes back usually the following week. He doesn't miss a ton of games actually, but he doesn't finish a lot of games. So he might play like 12 games and then like 4 or 5 games he's like, he came out early. But I'm a Waddle fan. I didn't want him to be traded. I thought the asking price was basically a poison pill. It was like, hey, if you want him, you got to take on the full contract and give us a bunch of assets. Nobody was going to do that. The whole idea was put the bar to the moon and see if somebody was really going to jump and get it, i.e. Micah Parsons, i.e. Sauce Gardner today. Two first was like, whoa, what happened there? But that's what happens. When teams are desperate enough, they will jump. And no one was desperate enough for Jalen Waddle. So, unfortunately, for other teams, he didn't get traded. But fortunately for us, he's still here. Bradley Chubb fell into a very similar situation. Bradley Chubb was thought to be traded just because we've been moving defensive linemen, and everybody in the league needs a pass rusher. Now, Chubb has a very interesting situation with his contract. Because we restructured it, there's no more guaranteed money on his contract past this year. But his cap hit for this year and then next year is $31 million for both years. So if you sign Bradley Chubb, you'll be signing on for a $62 million cap hit. That is crazy. That's Bosa Watt level cap hits. So we just took some money, put it into a signing bonus to make our cap go down now. But the next 2 years cap is hellacious. And again, if he's cut after June 1st, don't be surprised. We did not get the offer we wanted from teams. I believe we were asking for a third round pick. This wasn't fully disclosed. I think because Jalen Phillips got a third round pick, and I said days ago, if we get a third for Jalen, they should take it. But I thought most likely we'd get a fourth. Well, we got a third from the Eagles, right? I think they kind of felt like, well, if people are that hungry for a DN, give us a third for Bradley Chubb. No more guaranteed money. You can play him the rest of this year, cut him, no harm, no foul. And I think teams just weren't willing to go for a third for Chubb, which I get. Jalen's a better prospect. He's younger. Like, there's no giant cap hit at the end of the year. There's a lot of reasons why Jalen got the contract he got, and a lot of reasons why you wouldn't give that to Chubb. So we didn't get quite the asking price we wanted. Also, and this is kind of reckless speculation, I think on some level, they said there wasn't going to be a fire sale. The Jets did a fire sale today, and we'll maybe talk about that one day because they are fully going for the future, which is good for us in the present because they're not trying to win right now. But they said, forget the present. I still very much contend that the Dolphins do not want to fire Coach McDaniel. And if you take away all of his good players at the trade deadline, yes, that sets you up for the future. You get picks, you get players, whatever, and you get cap relief, all that good stuff. But you also put him in a worse position to win. And if you want to justify to the fan base why he should stay as the coach, you can't do that winning 2 or 3 games. You got to win 6, 7, 8 games and say, hey, we had some guys get hurt. Tyreek got hurt. We traded some guys, but look at what coach did. When you trade away all of our best players, we're not going to win. So then when you tell the fan base, hey, we won 3 games last year, but we're bringing coach back again, that doesn't work. Not after 4 years. People are like, hey, We want to start seeing some progress. So I think on some level, the asking prices for all these players have been very firm, like maybe more than they should be asking for, but they were firm asking prices because if we're going to move off of this, we got to have a really, really good return in the future. We can't have we're giving up Chubb for a fifth and a seventh. Like, what are we going to do with those picks? Yes, they could theoretically turn out well. Most likely not. Seventh round picks don't often make the roster. And fifth round pick, you're a rotational piece, maybe. Third round pick, you should be starting. Devon Achane's a third round pick. You should be starting. That's what we're thinking there, right? So I understand the mentality of trying to like play between both sides. We're either going to give this guy up for more than he's worth, most likely, or you're staying and we're going to try to salvage the year. There's no playoff in our future. We know that. But we can win 4 or 5 games. Would that be good for our draft pick? Not at all. And I know some fans are like, just get a good pick. I understand. But as from a management perspective, I understand where they're trying to hedge their bets. Maybe that's a better way of saying that. Like, we don't want to give up everything too early, but we don't want to suck too bad, and we're kind of like in this middle ground. I think being in the middle ground in football is the worst place to be. I think what the Jets are doing is actually the best thing to do. You don't know if you have a quarterback for the future. You give him a 2-year contract, and after this year they want to cut him. The money is basically null and void. You get a ton of first-round picks. You have 7 first- and second-round picks in the next 2 years. You can draft 4 O linemen, 2 D linemen, and a quarterback and say, hey, we can rebuild this. Like, we got the pieces. They have a bunch of third-round picks, too. Like, we can literally rebuild our team in 2 years. Everybody's cheap. We can really go after the quarterback we want. Let's say there's a quarterback at 2 we want, and we have the 4th pick in the draft. We can package a 1 and a 3 and move up 2 picks. Like, we have all the assets to move. That's what I like better. But when you're trying to put butts in the seats, I understand teams don't typically like to just put a losing product out there. I understand. It's just a lot. So we haven't mentioned Chris Grier a lot post the exit because, it was kind of handled with kid gloves. Like, there was a mutual parting of ways, and we kind of just like let it rock. We know that Chris Grier probably should have been fired years ago. He hasn't done a good job. There's just no way. There's no way to say it. The drafts haven't been good. We haven't been good at the trade deadlines. He went all in 4 years ago, and that led to 2 playoff appearances, 2 first-round losses. If you knew that, if you told him in 2021, hey, in 25, all the moves you're making now, all the money you're spending, are the players you're going to get, are going to result in you having 0 playoff wins, he would say, in 4 years, I'll be fired. Because how else can you justify that? You can't say, give me Tyreek, give me Ramsey, give Tua all the money, give Waddle all the money, and then, hey, you won 0 playoff games. That's cool, let's try it again. You don't get to do that. You spent too much money. You did too much. You went too all in, and you busted, like, right? You lost. So he was expected to be fired. But according to Dave Hyde of the Sun Sentinel, he did his own internal reporting, and he said there was a critical point that led to the firing happening when it did. We knew it had to happen, but when it happened was really important. This is what he had to say. The only surprise was what I was told why it happened, which was team owner Steve Ross wanted some answers of what they were going to do at the trade deadline. And Chris Grier hadn't made calls. And his idea was let people call him. And I think at 2-7, Ross wanted someone to be a little more proactive in there. And so that was the final straw. That obviously wasn't the reason he was fired. It was the last thing that happened to push Ross over the edge. That actually makes sense to me. Like, we've been talking about the team has to get better after every game. Got to get better. Got to get back to the drawing board. We've been saying that the whole time. And that doesn't mean anything because we haven't done anything to make our team better. But we've been saying, got to get better. Got to make it better. Got to get better. And then the trade deadline is where you get better. Either you get better right now or you're setting yourself up to be better in the future. And if you say, hey, what's your idea on the trade deadline? And you're like, don't have any. Just kind of sitting by and seeing what's going to happen. That's not an acceptable answer. We're 2-7, and you should have been fired 3 to 7 years ago. And you're saying, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. We got some good players. Somebody will call, and then we'll take it from there. So you don't have a plan for what you want. Like, are you reaching out to certain teams? Like, do you not call San Francisco as soon as Bosa got hurt? You didn't call Cincinnati, who has the worst defense in the world. Like, hey, I know Henderson is kind of giving y'all trouble. Maybe swapping. Y'all take on a Chubb, we take on a... Like, you're not doing any willing and dealing. You're just sitting back as if you're in a catbird seat. You are on a chopping block, and you're not doing anything to make your job better, and you're obviously not doing anything to make the team better. What are we talking about? I think Chris Grier was going to coach the rest, be the GM for the rest of the year. I think that was originally the plan. I don't think the idea was to fire anybody during the season. But if you're just not, you got to show me that you're trying to do better and that you're trying to do better for us. You didn't do that. So now, to be fair, we only made one move at a trade deadline, and I do believe that Howie Roseman would have called Chris Grier to make this trade. In fact, I imagine he was calling him before that because Howie Roseman will get on the phone and get some stuff to happen. But if I told you you fired your GM and brought new GM in, set yourself up for the future, and then you made one trade that was the most obvious trade to make, I don't know, did we end up in a better place? Like, yes, Grier deserved to be fired, but Champ didn't do anything, and obviously Stephen Ross didn't do anything. We just kind of stayed pat. So the messaging, then the result of the messaging, and then what we did after, none of that kind of tracks to me. If the idea was Stephen Ross wanted some like big changes, and Chris Grier didn't have big changes in mind, he was kind of like, I like where we are, I get that. But then when you fire him, you have to then make changes. You can't be status quo after firing someone saying we got to do better. I don't get how all this went down. I think he just needed any reason to kind of put him out of his misery. And maybe Champ would have come with some good ideas, but how could he have even known the ins and outs of the team for real? This feels a little sketchy to me, but I do think if my team wasn't winning, like if he came to Coach McDaniel, and Coach McDaniel was like, hey, what are you going to do for the team? He was like, nothing different, just keep running the same plays. That might be a fireable offense because the offense hasn't been scoring. You're not protecting Tua. Jonah's getting abused on the offensive line. Are you going to like leave a chip block there? Are you going to like move the pocket? Are you going to add a 6 offensive lineman? You're going to just keep doing the exact same thing? That doesn't make any sense. So I get it. It just seems like Chris Grier didn't do himself any favors on the way out. After this relatively uneventful trade deadline, right? What does this message send to the fans? I was left with that today because I was sitting by my phone all day waiting to see some like moves being made. I thought almost 100% Matthew Judon would be gone because he's got an expiring contract, 1-year deal, just as a rotational older DN. I thought he would get picked up by a contending team. No. Obviously, Bradley Chubb didn't get traded. Minka didn't get traded. Rasul didn't get traded. Waddle didn't get traded. So I'm like, as a fan base, where are we? We didn't trade players, some of which we're going to lose this year for the future. So we're playing the year out, but we know there's no playoff this year. And there's no reason to feel like we have like a team that can really compete for the rest of the year. Like, for real. We have a rough handful of games on our schedule left. I don't know what we're supposed to do with this. I still feel very strongly that Coach McDaniel will be the coach next year. But what's the vision for this team? We don't know what we're doing at quarterback, but yeah, we're paying our quarterback, $53 million a year. Devon is going to want an extension probably in the offseason. Do you give it to him? Do you make him play it out? Do you think he's a 200-pound running back? Do we draft a new back? What are we doing there? Jalen Waddle already has a contract extension. Fine. Minka Fitzpatrick wants a new contract. We didn't trade him, so I have to believe we're going to give him one. He has a couple years left on his deal, but are we going to extend him 2 more years and then spread the money out? What's happening there? No idea. I don't know if there's any reason to feel like super optimistic. I like the 3rd round pick for Jalen Phillips. I thought that was the best possible outcome for that. So we got one really nice piece that we could either draft a player or package that and move up. Other than that, I think, again, the Patriots are doing what the Patriots are doing. I think they've built a very nice foundation. I was shocked they didn't make more moves at wide receiver, but that's fine. The Bills just beat the Chiefs. The Bills are the Bills. The Jets are in a total rebuild, but have buku assets to rebuild. Buku. High premium picks. And they're going to have a lot of money to spend. So in the offseason, if there's a quarterback that's good, they could just go buy the quarterback and then literally fill out the team with top shelf talent. I can see the vision there. I don't know what the vision for the Dolphins is because it's not apparent. We just run him back with Coach McDaniel and Tua and hope he doesn't get a concussion, and you hope Jonah gets better on the line and Austin Jackson comes back eventually. And what do we draft a bunch of corners and maybe our secondary gets better? I don't know what the direction is for the team. I don't have a ton of optimism. It's an interesting place to be because post-draft you should be feeling like either yay or my team is solid. Don't trade anybody I like. I think Miami fans were like, we like Jalen, we like Bradley, but if we get picks, we can kind of move on. Like we're in the middle. We're in the middle team, and I don't like being in the middle team. Like I don't that middle thing is not it's not a place to be. So is anyone more optimistic today than they were yesterday? I personally am not. But if you are, then let me know. But that will do it for today's episode of Dolphins Daily. Thank y'all for the likes and the subscribes. We'll see you next time on Dolphins Daily. Peace.